Hello, everybody. Hi, Martin. How are you doing? And all of our viewers from across the world. Super excited. We are growing. Our channels are following. We are currently at 31 followers. Please help us grow by clicking the subscribe button. Again, welcome to the Beyond the Pivot podcast, the podcast that just takes you around Africa's different ecosystem. We will bring you always insightful conversations, insightful insights around what's happening on the continent. And I'm super excited about today's episode. But before we get into that, as always, would like to share some news around what's happening around the continent or in Europe. And to do that, Martin, over to you. What's been happening across Africa and what can you share?
Thank you, Capvela, for the introduction and for welcoming all our guests. All the 31 subscribers we have on YouTube. We believe that number is going to be at least 50 by the end of this episode. Usually, we bring you stories about somebody getting funded, some statistics about the system. Today, we're going to bring you a good news about exit. So, V Capital is a 5-year-old African venture capital firm who has just made headlines by fully returning its 4 million investment fund. It's the first fund they ever made. So just returning it so quickly is a success by itself. And they made it mostly by selling part of its stake in Moniepoint, which is a Nigerian fintech. This fintech is now a unicorn, but in 2019, when V Capital invested in it, it's $150,000. It had just a little bit small evaluation, and now they sold their stake and made impressive $8 million return based on that initial $150,000 investment. So people, even though the startup ecosystem in Africa is still in its development stage, there are exits, and the exits are even sweeter because usually the investment doesn't have to be as high as in America or as in Europe. And that brings us to our today's guest and today's interview that Capvela will set a stage for.
Thank you so much for that, Martin. I mean, it's really impressive. We are always looking for positive and successful stories from across the continent to encourage more risk capital that goes to these startups. And We Capital, seeing that return, I think is quite a significant milestone. For those that do not know Moniepoint, I think the capital investment firm has been with the startup quite early in their stage of development. And from the time that they had to pivot to now becoming a business banking and one of Nigeria's largest merchant acquirer, which they are today, and they are a unicorn, by the way, one of Africa's unicorn. They just made it recently to that point. And for more context, we only have 9 unicorns, with the majority of them being fintechs. So great milestone. And speaking of investments, today's episode, super excited about. We have quite an amazing guest today. His name is Tomi Davies, and we'll get straight into the interview without even wasting any of your time. So please enjoy the conversation. Hi, Tomi, again. Super excited to have you and host you. To all of our viewers, I know we have been growing our following on the channel. That's on YouTube, Spotify, and everywhere else. Today, I'm super excited about our guest. We have Tomi Davies, also known as TD. For those that know him, basically TD is the collaborator in chief at TVC Labs. TD, I would like to know what that means later on in the podcast, but he's also the founding former president of the Africa Business Angel Network, and he's quite a key stakeholder in the startup ecosystem across the continent. He is also the author of 4 books. We have Corporate Board, Cracking the Success Code, The African Project Manager, and also one of my favorite books, which is The Investment Worthy Startup. This is one of my favorite books, TD, and I will tell you why. It's part of one of the core books that we take our startups through, the Mentor Pitch program, which is a program that you have been running at TVC Labs. Please remind me, you are at the 8th cohort, correct?
We finished the 8th cohort. We're going to be running the 9th in May.
Amazing, amazing. So they have been running, we have been actually talking about the mentor pitch program for quite some time here. We are strong advocates for it. And so it all started at TVC Labs, and they have been running, as mentioned, the 8th cohort that was just recently completed and ended. And now they'll be running that 9th cohort. With TD, in collaboration with TVC Labs, TD has been key to also help us, firstly, setting up the Zambia Business Angel Network. He played a key role there, and also helping us set up the mentor pitch program successfully last year. That's in collaboration with Bongo Hive and ABAN and TVC Labs. We actually hosted our 2nd cohort. So super excited again. And TD, welcome to the podcast, the Beyond the Pivot podcast.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
To kick us off, TD, while I was reading the book, I saw that you had dedicated this book to those aspiring and using innovation, right? But not only those building a better future for Africa, but you also dedicated it to your grandkids, which is Kai and Kayo. I was curious to know, you had encouraged them as this would be a blueprint for them to build startups. Is the goal that you will be their first angel investor?
Well, the answer is yes and no. In spirit, yes, but in reality, I am a realist and I do not expect to be around by the time they become entrepreneurs, even with all the work that's being done now in killing death. And I'm quite sure you followed the news where a fair bit, Jeff Bezos and others are spending a fair packet to see what we can do about that. But, I'm not in that camp. I'm a 70, and everything around me says 70 is just about right, the right average. Some people are going to make it to 105, and others are going to go at 45. But, really, you plan your life. 70, yeah, like right now, I'm on overtime. Okay. So if you look at it with that conceptual model, yeah, I think it works.
Yes, absolutely. And maybe adding to that, as we speak to today's discussion, which is your Terra-free, the angel investing. For actually many viewers in Africa that might not know this, TD, you were among the investors that invested in a famous comic and also animation series, which is called Super Strikers. And I think many didn't know, some know you, but some might have come across that work. And it was also one of your first exits that you have been through. As an angel investor, for our viewers that might not know what it is, in simple terms, how would you define it and why is it important for Africa in relation to some of the work that you've been doing with supporting founders?
Well, for me, it's really very simple. Angel investing is about building the future of your city. That's it. Okay. And there are a whole bunch of people that want to do that. The way to do that first is the property. Everybody's got to live somewhere. So today we talk about prop tech, property technology and things associated with it. Then we all got to eat. Okay. So we talk about e-commerce markets, food delivery, logistics, all kinds of activities around that. Oh, and by the way, you got to wear some clothes, right? And you get the picture. This isn't anything exotic. This is about the reality of day-to-day living on the continent, okay? So when you consider that the mobile phone has given us a platform that we otherwise would not have access to, you start to get what I call the art of the possible.
And I would like you to actually delve deeper into that, TD. So it's almost like you're investing in your own future of your community. Does that mean anyone can be an angel investor? What are your thoughts around that? Or could you just tell us a bit more?
Well, when I said that 20 years ago, people said, TD, angel investors are high net individuals. I says, yeah, in the Western world, I agree. I'm not knocking that. But we're on the continent. All right? Yeah, we have unicorns now. But for every single unicorn, I'll show you 10 gazelles. All right? What's a gazelle? A gazelle is a steady eddy. All right? They hit that $1.5, $2 million revenue, and they've sort of stayed there. they've got 30, 40 people they've employed, and they either get bought by somebody or they merge. But the beauty is they grew into that state in under 10 years. And it's that growth trajectory that we're talking about. So as an individual in any ecosystem, if you're really serious about, I belong here, it's about belonging, by the way. Okay, if you don't belong, then it's a totally different story. But if you feel I belong here, okay, and I want to see this place grow, then chances are you're probably already investing, in property. Okay. You're probably already maybe in the stock exchange if you like risk a bit. But if you already have that, and is it only high net worth individuals that invest in property? Last I checked, half the employees I know are setting up money for their mortgage. Okay. So if you look at it from that perspective, you start to see why anybody, but it's not for everybody. Here's why. It's the highest risk asset class. As we speak, I've just written my syndicate. 2 of our startups shut down last year. Are you with me? That's my portfolio manager. The young lady was like, oh, we have to tell her. I says, no, that's the reality. Just write the postmortem. Okay, what really happened and what did we learn from it? And then let's move on to the, but getting back to, should everybody be an angel investor? No, not everybody, but
And
okay.
TD, just for context, before you get into that, would you give us context around, so you mentioned the 2 startups that dropped. How big is this portfolio, just for context sake, from which these startups are folding?
My current portfolio is about, 28?
Okay.
Yeah. But these 2 are important because they're part of the mentor pitch program. They're from the mentor pitch program. So while we've had like Nitya, you see Nitya's gone skyrocket, we've got 2 failures and we've got 1 superstar and the others are in between. So that's why we talk about portfolio being the way to go if you're doing angel investing. It's not about betting on a single horse. You've got to, and those that fail. So for example, out of these 2 now, there's 1 bright young engineer that I think would do well with another one of the startups that's moving on high. So again, it's about being able to build those synergies. And that's why we have ourselves as a community.
That's brilliant. Thanks for that context. Yes, taking it back to angel investment, please. I cut you there.
Right. So what I have to put some disclaimers now, all right? Because I don't want to be arrogant and say I invented angel investing, but what I will tell you is I practice angel investing slightly differently to, what everybody else does out there, simply because this is my way and I make no apologies for it. Okay. I profess what I call mentor-driven angel investing. That's why we have mentor pitch. And I've been working on this concept for the last 20 odd years. In fact, Ben White of VC for A and I came up with mentor-driven capital, and you'll find that on the VC for A platform. The principle is simple, okay? As an angel investor, what are you doing? You're trying to help a young entrepreneur build a fast-growing company, all right? Now, to do that takes quite a number of things. So the first thing you've got, and I'm talking, we'll come back to the startup and the founder in a minute. First thing you've got to decide is, why am I doing this? Okay. Once you know why, then, okay, I'm doing it because I believe that my city is going to grow. In my case, why am I doing it in Lagos? Because I know the growth rate in Lagos. I'm from Lagos. Okay. I went to school in Lagos. Are you with me? Name a street. Okay. It's grown exponentially, and there's some places, parts of the outskirts I don't know, but I'm homegrown. Do you get my point?
Yeah.
So that's the first reason I'm doing it, is I believe Lagos is going to grow and keep, So that's the first thing, is why you're doing this. All right. Given that, what's your interest? In short, where can you add value? Okay, at zero cost to you, maximum value to the recipient. Oh, well, my background's in tech. Okay, I was in artificial intelligence as far back as 82. So now I'm a 70-year-old prompt engineer, and people are wondering, what the? Okay. All right. So, but again, what do you bring to the party? All right. I've got a damn good network. All right. I think last I checked, well, a couple of thousand people that I know who are in this ecosystem. You start to get? And that's what I'm investing. And like you said in the book, I'm investing because I expect my grandkids to participate in Lagos. So yeah, I'm giving you 2K, 5K, 3K, whatever it is. And I'm expecting it back in maybe 5 to 7 years. In fact, there's an exit I just got. It's 10 years. I didn't believe it. But guess what? There was one I got last year, and it was 5 years. So, which I told you about just before we had the show, Kabila, if you remember.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. So if you look at it from that perspective, okay, it is the highest risk asset class, but to me, it's also the most rewarding, personally. Why? Because you see the growth trajectory of the future starting right in front of your eyes. You know, you just see, I can't explain it, but from the best way to do is let me tell you, let me share one story with you, okay, that brings it to life. Okay, I met a young man on stage in Joburg, South Africa. Okay, at that time we were running this thing. It was called Demo Africa. It was run by Harry out of Kenya. And this young man had a diagram of a cooking stove that he wanted to build. Okay, and I'm looking, I'm saying, last I checked, we're tech. Cooking stove? Like, seriously? Okay. Then he got to a part of the pitch. He says, oh, and the pellets of the cooking stoves are made from waste, and therefore it's carbon positive, and therefore will be carbon trading. I sat up immediately. Say, dude, like, seriously? Now, so I flew to Abuja, which is where he was based in Nigeria, met with him, saw the team, did my due diligence. Okay. Minor investment, but spent a fair bit of time structuring. And now today, that company is doing 5,000 stoves a month.
5,000 stoves a month.
5,000 stoves a month, and they can't meet demand. And they're about to start the carbon trading because each stove has a GPS system built in it with a consumption recording capability for carbon. So how do you explain to people how you feel about being part of that journey?
How do you feel?
No, I mean, that factory now employs over 60 people. So that is what makes me, that's why I'm saying, if that makes you feel good, then you should be an angel investor. Because then you can say, yeah, I am helping build my country's future. But if you don't believe in your country and you just want to make money, then do yourself a favor, find a good venture capital firm, okay, and become an LP. You'll still make the money.
Yeah. And that's quite an impactful story that you share, TD, because what you're showing or what you're presenting is this opportunity for not just the financial return that comes or reward that comes with investing in these startups, but also this impact that is created within communities. Like you mentioned, the 60 jobs in a factory. And we can only imagine what that would be as the startup or the company gets to scale.
Can I just give you the clincher on this, okay? Because we need to also understand, respect, adore, and admire the founders that actually make this happen. In this case, the young man's name is Oke Ese. And why do I bring it up? Because the driving force for him, for building that smokeless cooking stove, was the fact that he lost his mother to smoke inhalation.
Yeah, that's quite a sad yet powerful story in terms of inspiration. Almost a relevant problem, and I think I'd like you to get into this as you maybe talk about the framework or model for this mentor-driven capital that we're talking about, right? Through Mentor Pitch, the Mentor Pitch program. I do know quite a lot about the Mentor Pitch program, but for the sake of our viewers, I'll be happy for you to share what that framework or what it really means for you to be or create a space for mentorship while you're being an angel investor. What does that look like, TD?
Well, the way mentor pitch works is it's based on the poem framework. And if I got into the poem framework now, we probably wouldn't leave here because it's a framework that's it's a phoenix. I don't know if you're familiar with the story of the phoenix.
Please tell it. No, I'm not. Please tell it.
The phoenix is the mythical bird that arises from the ashes of fire. So it's sort of when something is born out of disaster.
Powerful.
So what had happened was I was the chief operating officer for the Ernst & Young incubator during the dot-com era, and we raised a significant amount of money for a startup that was going to change the retail world. I was involved because before that I'd been the head of IT research for Marks & Spencer, one of the world's leading retailers. So yeah, we're going to sort of build the next generation. And to cut the long story short, millions of dollars raised. Less than a year and a half later, the company goes bust.
Wow.
And as us eggheads would do, what do thinkers do when you fail? Hey, what do we learn from this? So in learning and in building that, we came up with a framework on how to determine, first and foremost, if something was a startup or not. And then I sort of parked it. But then at the turn of the century, just before I hit Africa, I met a gentleman who had created this organization called Ideas Labs. And that gave birth to TVC Labs, Technovision Communications at that time in 1999. And it was when I did the Super Strikers investment. Actually, it was when I was doing the second investment that poem came back, the framework came back to life, because all of a sudden I found myself having to assess between SMEs and startups on the continent because nobody knew the difference. And microfinance banks were turning down startups and giving, it was just upside down. So, cut the long story short, I started on this journey, refined the framework, and sort of been refining it every 2 to 3 years since then. And COVID created the book, to be honest, because the books, if you go onto slides here, you see since like 2013 or 2012, it's been properly documented. There are literally hundreds of articles on it and everything else, because simply it works. And what does it say? It's very simple. It says, first of all, what's the vision? Okay, because if you don't know where you're going, then any road will get you there. So we start with the vision. As Stephen Covey says, you begin with the end in mind. So paint me a picture. You're very successful. 10 years from now, what does it look like? Okay. What's the problem? What's the solution? Who's it for? Why is it of value? So once you've cracked that in your head, okay, to where you can paint that picture to other people to buy into, because that's the critical thing about having a vision. If others can't buy into it when you share it, then it's probably not worth having. So that's sort of the first step is, okay, can people see this? Can they really see what you see? Let me bring it to life. I run TVC Labs, and what are we looking to do? Well, what we believe is that by the time we fund 1,000 startups, okay, we can follow them into the future. Simple, straightforward, exactly. All right. Now, once you've got that vision, then the poem brings it to life. What's the poem? Well, poem is the proposition, okay, that's delivered by an organization, which is measured by its economics as you traverse milestones. POEM. Proposition delivered by an organization, measured by the economics as you traverse milestones, right? Let me see if I could break it down. You've got your vision. First question becomes, what market are we talking about here? Why? Because your proposition is your offer to customers in a market. But we start with the market. Why? Because you can never be bigger than your market, okay? Your market sets the context for any commercial enterprise you're going to have, any economic impact you're going to make, okay? Any social impact you're going to have, it starts with the market. So once we understand the market, we understand who the competitors are, we understand what the regulatory environment is, we understand what the trends are in that market, we drop down to the next component. What's that? Who are the customers within that market that you're targeting? What are their psychographics? What are their demographics? How are they solving the problem right now? What's it going to cost to acquire them? And when you get them, how long are they going to be with you? And how much can you make out of them? What are they doing today to that effect? Once you know that, then we can talk about your offer. What are you going to offer these customers? Because now I know who the customers are, I know what the market is. I can set the context for whether your product's going to be good or not, or whether it's going to be relevant. So once we know that that offer is going to go gangbusters with those customers, and guess what? They're an increasing crowd because the country itself is growing. Now we know we've got something. Now we know we understand the proposition. Question comes, all right, what organization is going to deliver it? So for the organization, it's the people who use those processes, okay, and an underlying technology to deliver the proposition. So let's look at the people first. Who owns the company? Who runs the company? Who works for the company? Who partners with the company? All right? Who are these people? What kind of culture do they run between them? Because that's going to tell you whether or not they can hook up with those customers. Am I making sense here? You starting to get the picture? Once we
100%.
know who the people are, then we start to ask the question, how do they get things done? What kind of processes do they use? Okay, first of all, how do they govern the entity that's doing all of this? All right, how do they buy things? How do they make things? How do they sell things? How do they look after their people? How do they manage their money? Once we're crystal clear that these processes are independent of individuals, okay, so you can bring people in and flow, then we start looking at, all right, what's the technology they're using to do all of this? What's in the cloud? What's on the desk? What's in the mobile? What's the experience? What's the connectivity? What's the compliance? Now, once you have that, you have a full picture of how the organization is going to deliver the proposition. And that's the whole business right there. The organization delivering a proposition. But at the end of the day, we're not here for charity. This is about hard, show me the money. So we talk about the economics. All right. And the economics starts right at the beginning with the capital. How much did the founders put in? How about their family? How about their friends? What did they use that for? What was the application of those funds, right? Because if I'm coming in as the first outside check, I want to see what you've done with other people's money. Now you want to take my money. Okay, great. How much of it do you need? When do I get it back? And how much do I get back when I get it back? Right. Okay. So now that we've got that, we then say, okay, let's look at your profitability. How are you burning cash? Where's your cash going? Too much on marketing, too little on personnel, too much on logistics, too little on how's the burn going? And how is that generating the revenue? And what is the revenue generation rate to take you to break even, so I know when you can start to return the capital that you've already got? Because that is going to determine your capital journey. All of that I want to understand while you also tell me about of the SDGs, okay, which ones are you assessing and which ones are you looking at? We know job creation is going to be there. How are you doing on gender equality? Do you qualify for innovation? How are you assessing and measuring that? Once we understand all of those, then we got a clear idea on, yeah, now we got a startup. But let's just double check. All right. The money makes sense. Let's look at the timing. So we talk about milestones. When was your found? What was this company formed? It was formed 18 years ago. And you're just getting here? Oh, sorry. Oh, we're 2.5 years old and our MRR is $20,000. Whoa. Okay. What are your challenges? Well, we can't get regulatory compliance because they won't give us a license to do plot. We did this. And by the way, we really need to raise 100 grand because we've got to hire somebody that's going to. What are those challenges? If we overcome those challenges, then we should be able to hit a 50K MRR within the next 24 months because we would have expanded into 2 new markets with 1 new product. I will have 14 more people on board to address that point. You get that picture now. So that's the poem framework. Okay, soups to nuts, which is what's encapsulated in the book. And that's what we use as the basis of the mentor pitch program. So what the mentor pitch program does is the angels, all right, who have a thesis on the one side, say, all right, you know what, I'm interested in edutech. And I says, well, I'm interested in fintech. I'm interested in fintech and edutech. Well, look, give me agri-tech. You guys can keep all the rest. You got your group, okay? 12 startups that meet the criteria. What's that criteria? You've got to have at least 12 months revenue. This is about first outside check, okay? So be prepared to show us what you've done with your family's money, all right? Ab initio, SDG, which of them is yours? Because for me, if I don't see somebody putting 5 up there, I tend just to move along. Okay, I want to see gender equality as something you're proactively looking at. If you're not, you've missed a trick. I'm not investing. End of message. So again, it's about understanding all of those things and being sure they're in place. And what we then do is over a number of weeks, we focus and drill down on each of those where you now pitch that topic. All right, let's say, for example, market. So on the market session, you as the founder, you get to pitch your market to the mentors. But before you pitch, the mentors actually have a conversation just like we're having, saying, well, if somebody's going to tell me about the market, at least I want to understand the total addressable. I want to know, and then the other one says, yeah, you might want to know that, but I want. So the mentors interactively to the hearing of the mentees express what they're looking for them to be able to invest. Are you with me? That's the mentoring part. So the mentees can then ask questions. So if you're looking for TAM, is SOM and all of that also relevant to you? Or are you just looking at, you can then interact before you pitch. And the fact that you're not pitching once, but you're pitching on different topics starts to build a relationship, okay? Which when you now decide to, even if you decide not to invest, you've still got a relationship because of those interactions. And you can do other things like advise, to get them to where they're investment ready, which I do a number of times. Are you with me? So that's why it's such a powerful tool. Plus also the fact that for me, it brings together 2 institutions that I think we need in coalition for the development of our continent. And that is the innovation hubs and the angel networks. And I'm known for this, so don't worry about it. That's why we created the Catalytic Fund. And no, seriously, because you see, we can either talk or we can do. I'd just rather show people. And then even if I fail, at least I learn something.
That's well comprehensive, TD. I thought I know the mentor pitch program, But Martin, you can clearly see that TD breathes mentor pitch, he embodies it fully. But is there a comment that you had, Martin, from your end, or a question based on that?
Like Kabbalah said, he spoke about mentor bridge a lot and how it looks like in Zambia. But now I know the guts of it as well, not not the face of it only. So thank you, TD, for sharing that with us. I was asking Kabbalah many times, since they're going to be running next cohort, how a person from outside of the continent can join as a mentor, perhaps. How can, if it's even possible, and how can one become part of the local NGO network, essentially. And Kaval always told me it's possible, but I never knew like how. So I know the answer is yes, but like if somebody is watching it and they're like, I love it,
I can speak to that, okay? And I think Ben White of VC Verhey, who lives in the Netherlands and has been co-investing with me for nearly a decade, can also speak to that. We have in the TV, in fact, just go to www.tvcng.com and look at our angels. You will see we have angels from all over the world. And it's something that I am pushing now, is the whole concept of having the diaspora co-investors with the local investors. That's why I like what the Zambian Angels have done. Southeast Angels is also doing the same thing. It's something I think we should do continent-wide, because last year and every year for the last, God knows, $90 billion have been transferred by the diaspora in remittances to Africa. Now, if we structure ourselves well, there isn't any reason we shouldn't be doing $1 billion in inbound investments from the diaspora. So that's the work I've taken on since I've stepped down from ABAN. That's what I'm picking up next. And Mentor Pitch is at the heart of that, as a program that can facilitate that kind of activity.
Brilliant. And tell me about that, TD. I saw from a report that a recent report from the ABAN reporting that 77% of the angels are investing less than 25,000.
Correct.
How do you see that evolving in the future? And what do you think will drive more larger investments towards startups?
Well, that's exactly why we're pushing Diaspora. Don't forget, the reason behind this decline is the across-the-board devaluation of African currencies. So you've got to understand that is also the raison d'etre that has stopped international investments a halt, because returns are critical. So if I'm taking, as some unfortunate startups have done, I've taken the dollar from you when it was 500 of my currency to $1. Today, my revenues have increased by 100%. But guess what? Because my currency is now 1,000, guess what? I'm at a loss. And that's the reality of why I say local investors are the critical resource. Because they're local currency based, they'll do what we've done in TVC Labs. We just went straight to Naira denominated investments and we didn't bat an eyelid. Do you get? Because all the expenses, and for us, it just meant their startup. Do you have any exposure to foreign exchange currencies? And if the answer is in cost base, in revenue, yes, we love you to bits. If the answer is our cost base is dollar, our revenue is Naira, sorry, guy, you're on a hiding to nothing. So those are some of the things that have happened.
And Martin, I know you also had a question around investment if it's only happening in Nigeria. I'll let you do it.
Yeah, like you were saying that you invest where your home is, but since you go to all the events around the world, not just around Africa, I wanted to ask then, based on that premise, if you only invest in startups in Nigeria, or if you also look elsewhere. I know you helped with Zambia mentor pitch, and maybe there will be more mentor pitches around around African continent. But if you are preliminarily interested in those, they are based in Lagos.
I have an advantage, which I continue to use and will continue to use. That is, name any city and I have an angel investor there. Okay, so you don't need me. You need that angel investor. So that's what I stand for. Cabuela was saying, what do you mean by collaborator in chief? That's exactly what I mean. Okay, so that when they have a startup from Nigeria, they send that person to me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get? That's how it works. And if that startup is from Port Harcourt, I send it to Uche. Somebody sends, oh, this is a Nigerian startup. They send it to Uche, and that startup's from Lagos. Uche sends it to me. That's the collaboration I'm seeking to build.
You are all therefore like experts in the local market. Therefore, you can help there the most. That's the premise behind it, I suppose.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. You know, there's no point. I mean, if I want to do something in Lusaka, why am I going to bother other than just pick up the phone, call Cabuela and say, hey, dude, do you get? He's got all context. He knows what minister said 3 weeks ago, and he knows, which roads are not working. Things I can't even begin to fathom that affect the results of what we're asking for. Build local, think global.
Yeah. Makes a lot of
and
sense.
I'm trying to be mindful of time as well. You spoke about drawing diaspora capital as well. And by the way, I just checked out on TVC Labs. You have quite a broad network from Canada, United States, UK, the Netherlands, which is quite impressive, speaking to Martin's question. But now that we've been seeing that there are only 4 key markets, the big 4 of Africa, right? Your Nigeria, Kenya, Egypt, and South Africa. Again, will we continue seeing that particular
That's
trend
changing.
of capital? Yes. So please speak to that, and what would be your advice to entrepreneurs in smaller markets?
The big four represent 75% of everything. Just take that as given. But what we're starting to see, just like fintech was the dominant sector, we're starting to see the rise of other geographies and other sectors actively. So the jury's still out as to who it's going to be or who's going to do what, but there are increasingly interesting ventures coming out, innovative ventures coming out of countries other than the mainstream. However, having said that, I think the way I look at it, let me just put it that way because I've got to jump out. The way I look at it is Africa is not one monolithic whole. Neither is it 54 countries. Think of it either way to your peril. Africa at the bottom layer is literally thousands, of countries. But it has a colonial history that has layered on top of that. So what you now have is Anglophone Africa, Francophone Africa, Arabica, South Africa, Lusophone Africa. And that is how the economies run. Remember I said we start with market. So I've taken you right back to the beginning. You're a startup. What's your market? And if you go look at the unicorns, that's why the unicorns have predominantly come out of Anglophone Africa. Okay, why? Because that's where the population is. That's where the volume is. We've had one come out of Francophone, Senegal, and then we've had 2 come out of Egypt. So while, like I said, unicorns are not African in the classic sense, they're still the global measure of the startup ecosystem. I trust that helps. Thanks a lot.
Yes, it does. 100% TD. Thank you.
That is great, TD. So what people should do when they want to find you? How can they reach out to you or perhaps talk to you?
I'm on X. I'm on LinkedIn. Instagram if you like food. Because the only thing I do, I'm a gastro-terrorist on Instagram. If you want to know what a gastro-terrorist is, find me on Instagram. On any of them, I'm Tomi D. TOMIDEE.
I'm going to find your Instagram first. I need to know what gastro-terrorist is.
And where can we find the book, Tomi? I know it's on Amazon, but are there any other platforms?
It is on Amazon. Okay, both in fact, it's on all of Amazon. And I'm really, really pleased that people find it interesting because we've, when you get over 1,000 copies, Amazon sends you this lovely note, which I think I'm just going to go and frame, because it's now my best-selling book out of 4. Yeah.
Nice. See, there is more accomplishments after 70. There is still something to be looking forward to.
Yeah, well.
Thank you so much for your time, TD.
Thanks a lot. You take care,
This was really
guys.
insightful. Thanks.
Cheers. You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you, Kabila, for this wonderful interview that you put together and for inviting Tomi, making this happen. It is a really privilege to talk to somebody who is so accomplished in this field and knows how to take it down into nuts and bolts. So even us beginners can understand what the angel investing in African countries is at least a bit about. So, Kavila, if people want to learn more about you and your work, where should they go?
Absolutely. As always, great conversation, insights about Africa and how funding will evolve and how you can get involved as well. To find me, always active on LinkedIn, please reach out. That's the primary place where you can find me. And I think for this particular session, we'll add most of the links to TVC Labs, Tomi Davies, and as well where you can get his book, as he mentioned, Amazon and everywhere else. So, Martin, where can they find you in case they wanted to reach out?
You guys can find me on LinkedIn, just like Capvilla. I'm most active there. And also on our website, beyond the pivot.org. And among others, I hope we will find you and you can find us on YouTube. And we cannot wait to read the wonderful comments, questions, or just remarks about the gastro-terrorist interview with Tomi Davies.
And Martin, just to also tie in, I just realized today we finally made it full circle into what we believe this podcast is about, right? Showcasing successful entrepreneurs, which was Muchu, investors, where we have Tomi Davies, and also an emerging startup, which was Dunia. So making it full circle to really just show you the value of what we're trying to bring for successful entrepreneurs, really showing you what's possible for Africa, for emerging entrepreneurs, giving you, if you're interested in potential pipeline, we are bringing you these emerging startups and we hope to bring you more from across the continent, and investors as well. If you're a startup, we hope that the conversations that we're having could lead to either introductions or a meetup with any one of our guests. So I'm super excited about that, and I thought I should just bring it up.
Thank you, Capvilla. And if you are missing someone that should be the guest of this show, of this podcast, please, as our subscriber, but also just a listener, feel free to leave a comment, write us a message. We'll be happy to consider it and invite anybody you feel you would like to hear from to the podcast. So thank you very much and see you next time.
Take care, guys.